Good morning. Good morning. I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you. Where's the Democrats in the House? Is there any Democrats in here? Thank you. Thank you. Let me just say to Roxanne, thank you for the introduction. I also want to thank Mayor Villaraigosa, Ms. Pelosi. These folks have come and they have shared their vision, their wisdom with each and every one of you. And I also want to thank our senior senator, Jeff Bingaman. Give him a big round of applause. And as Gary King said, he and Senator Udall both were former attorney generals. But in the class of 1982, which both of the individuals were involved in, I was elected county treasurer that year. Tony Naya was elected governor that year. It was a very esteemed class. And we decided that there's this thing they call leadership. And we decided that the issue that you hear about complacency, apathy, we cannot tolerate that. So either you decide you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And as we try to look at rebranding, or we're looking at branding period, we need to decide as Democrats that we're willing to stand up, and speak out. Are you willing to stand up? Are you willing to speak out? And I say that because as we look at all of the statewide elected officials, we look at all the elected officials, we look at each and every one of you as delegates to this convention. You're delegates to this convention. When you go back to your respective community, you can't afford to be tired. You can't afford to get tired. You can't afford to say, I'm going to let my next door neighbor do it. You can't afford to say, I'm going to sit this one out. We have too much at stake, ladies and gentlemen. When the speakers talked about unity, they talked about breaking up this coalition. They talked about the attack upon labor. We cannot stand for that, ladies and gentlemen. Are we going to stand by and stand for that? Are we going to stand for that? And I say this because our speakers talked about the unions looking for decent wages, looking for a decent work environment. They have set the tone, but they cannot do it by themselves. It's going to take each and every one of us to stand up and fight, because you got Governor Martinez talking about voter suppression, voter ID. And this is not a new idea. This has been a civil rights issue. It's been a human rights issue for many, many years. A lot of the blacks in the South don't have a driver's license because they ride public transportation. They've been trying to suppress them with voter ID for many, many years. So ladies and gentlemen, we have to call it for what it is. We can't sit here and think that they're telling us and they want to do something good for us. We are the party of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's what we're going to stand up for. Woo! So I just want to say to each and every one of you that as we build this house, we have to lay a foundation. They talked about from the courthouse to the White House. We have a responsibility. Every legislative district, we have to be proactive. We have to get involved. We don't need to be reactive, because we got to make sure if we're going to sit back, and let them do it by themselves, it's not going to happen. You got to be dedicated. You got to be committed. You got to be conscientious that I'm going to make a difference. Are you going to make a difference? You know, I think some of you are going to sleep in here. Are you going to make a difference? I need to wake you up. Wake up. So, as we look at what's at stake, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about I. It's not about me. It's about we and us. It's about your family. It's about your family values. It's about your kids. It's about your grandkids. That is what's at stake. When we talk about education, when we talk about employment, when we talk about health care, we can't afford to sit back and allow somebody else to do it on our behalf. We got to fight. We got to fight. We got to roll up our sleeves. Are you ready to roll up your sleeves? Are you ready to battle? So, my concern to each and every one of you, that as we look at the President of the United States, they've talked about he hadn't provided leadership. But as we said, he took the leadership on Lilly Ledbetter and said equal pay for equal work. He took the lead on health care, saying the richest country in the world, we cannot sit by and allow people to not have health care. You cannot sit by and people with pre-existing conditions not be having health care. You got to make sure that they have that health care. So those are things, as we look at education, if we're going to compete in the world, which is a global economy, we're going to have to address our education system in this country. We're going to have to address our education system. So we criticize and ridicule our teachers, but we should be valuing our teachers. Do we value our teachers in the Democratic Party? Woo! Let the teachers hear you. Do we value our teachers? So as we look at where we are today, I want each and every one of you to make a pledge that you're working very hard on behalf of candidates. And I think that's what you ought to do. But when the primary is over, we're going to have to rally together. A house divided within itself shall not stand. Don't let anybody divide our house. Don't you divide our house. Yeah. So we're going to have to come together. We're going to have to communicate. We're going to have to collaborate. We're going to have to cooperate with one another if we're going to make a difference. Because the strength is in numbers. The strength is in unity. And I'm saying we got to unify because we have to keep our eye on the prize. We have to look at who's the enemy, ladies and gentlemen. It's not us. The enemy is the Republican Party who we're going to have to go after. And it's going to take all of us to do that because they have a plan too. They are working very, very hard. So last but not least, let me just say that I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting me over the years, supporting these other outstanding elected officials, and you deciding to give your time on a Saturday to be here at this convention to make a difference. Thank you. We love you. Keep up the good work.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Lewis. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping. As you know,